Do you struggle with forgiveness? Not necessarily forgiving somebody else, but do you feel like God can forgive you for that thing you've done? Man, it's such an easy trap to fall into. Like, what I've done is so bad, you just don't know. I don't think God can forgive this.
Yeah.
Now, that's one of the reasons we do a morning focus where we take a look at the truth of who the Bible says God is and who God says you are. And this week, we're looking at the fact that God is still the same yesterday, today, and forever. And today, we're looking at the fact that God still forgives.
And he forgives in a big way. It's not just, there's this little white lie I had. I think sometimes it's easier to believe that. But no, God forgives the big things. And we can look at stories like the story of Saul, who became Paul, to help prove this.
Yeah, Paul felt the same way in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 9. He says, "For I am the least of all the apostles. In fact, I'm not even worthy to be called an apostle after the way I persecuted God's church." Now,
which is a wild thing to hear because Paul is like this superhero in the Gospels.
He is. He wrote most of the New Testament, but before his name was Paul, before he met Jesus and had this radical encounter, his name was Saul, and his living was to go and find Christians and throw them in jail or murder them. And yet, he encountered Jesus, who forgave him and sent him on a mission to turn people towards Jesus.
I know it's not always easy to believe, but when we look at what happened in Paul's life, he goes on in verse 10 to say, "But whatever I am now, it is all because God poured out his special favor on me." This is the same case for you. The way that God forgave everything on Saul's plate, everything that he had done, he forgives you. And maybe you're like, okay, yeah, but I'm still struggling with it. I know I've had moments where it's like, if I'm still struggling with it, how do I get right with God? You're forgiven. As you are struggling, you can continue to come to him. The rest of the verse says, "God has forgiven me, and not without results, for I have worked harder than any of the other apostles. And yet it was not I, but God who is working through me by his grace." Not only does God forgive us, he continues to work in us to restore us.
So no matter what you're struggling with today, no matter how bad it is you think you've messed up, 1 Corinthians 15, 9 and 10 remind us that God still forgives.